الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وبعد. We give thanks to Almighty Allah for having made today a realizable one. So we beseech Him to cascade His everlasting mercies upon the soul of the noblest of mankind from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his household, his companions, and those of us who are and will follow his threshold to the day of reckoning. Having said this, I say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We welcome our viewers to the maiden edition of this program, which is Muslim State of Affairs. And my name is Taoheed Kamorden. With me in the studio is our Ustadh, in person of Al-Ustadh Taoheed Kamorden. Assalamu alaikum, Ustadh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me.
You are mostly welcome, sir. So today, being the maiden edition of this program, we would like to discuss the burning issue that are in public domain now. A lot have been said and written on the issue of Palestine and the people of Palestine. So, being Muslims who should be conscious of what is happening to Muslims or even the entirety of mankind elsewhere, irrespective of their religious sensibilities and affiliations. So, this will bring us to the question of the day. Ustadh, please, can you, with this space of some minutes, trace the ethnographic background of the people of Palestine, or let me say the entirety of the region, which is known as Sham? Bismillah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. We thank Allah for making today possible for us to meet, as you rightly said. Without mentioning our words, I want to say for the first time that tracing an issue of this magnitude is going to be historical, and if I'm not going to sound a pedestrian, the language of history, isn't a simple one.
Exactly.
But we're going to try our possible best to make it simple so that our audience will understand what we shall be saying. Tracing, or should we say, the issue as we have it now, with respect to the Palestinians, or should I say Palestine, is a long-standing one that has been there for a long time. But we want to make our audience understand the fact that it isn't because the Palestinians, or it isn't because the region in question has a greater connection with Islam that has prompted wanting to say what you want to say. It is because of the fact that we want to defend humanity. That is the first port of call. We want to defend humanity, and we want to bring to the understanding of all and sundry that Muslims are not saying what they are saying in support of the Palestinians just because the Palestinians are Muslims. It is because they are a people, and it is because they are historical people. What affects the Palestinians affects whether a Palestinian is a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew. But not many people know that. Do you know why people don't want to give whatever affects Palestinians any credence? It is because of that wrong thinking that those people are Arabs. And the question is, if they are Arabs, must they be persecuted? So that is the question. And the fact that they are Arab, some people say that, is not enough for them to be witnessing what they are witnessing today. But like you've thrown to me the question to trace the genealogy of the people of Palestine, I would say that it is going to take a strenuous effort to trace that, but we're going to bring it closer. The people of Palestine historically are known to be the people of Canaan. So Canaan. So Canaan, we can say Canaanites. And if we say they are Canaanites, ordinarily some people may want to, raise an eyebrow about our classifying the Palestinians to be Canaanites. That is whom they are in history. They are Canaanites. Why are they Canaanites? What was the language of the Canaanites? It takes a lot of energy to establish that. But we're going to make sure that we make it simpler. Like I said earlier, we have scholars of history. There are Muslims among them. There are no Muslims among them.
Can we have some of those people's names?
Because of the time that is not at our disposal, I will only make mention of two of those important, historical personages who have written extensively about Palestine, about Sham, to be precise. We have Marshall Hodgson. Marshall Hodgson. Okay. He wrote, a big compendium of history with respect to how the world history started. And that is not where we are going, but from what he has written, we can pick some of the important points that will help us explain that thing we are discussing. We have Charles Kent, yes. Charles Kent. He wrote a popular book titled A History of the Hebrew People. A History of the Hebrew People. So from that book, which I have ascribed to Charles Kent, so it tells us a lot about whom the people of Sham basically were in history. He made us realize, Charles Kent, don't forget, wasn't a Muslim.
I understand.
He was a Christian writer. So he made us realize that region, Sham, to be precise, especially that particular region that has become an object of confusion, so to say, object of interest of many global powers, hopefully, was a loose land, basically. After which the history I'm tracing is a history of 3,000 years before the birth of Jesus Christ.
3,000 BC.
Yes, before the birth of Jesus alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay. It says it was basically a loose land. People from Yemen, southern Arabian Peninsula, would migrate, especially people who are descendants of Canaan rather. Canaan historically was one of the 4 children fathered by Prophet Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam. Yes. So basically after the event of the flood, resided in Yemen. From Yemen, they kept on migrating to to places beyond Yemen, like Mesopotamia, Biladu and Nahrain. Our Biladu ma wara an-Nahrain, Mesopotamia, basically today Iraq. From Iraq, they migrated. Some of them migrated, actually, to Sham, especially Palestine. And the first band of people from Yemen who migrated to the present-day Palestine were the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians. So that came about. That came around 3,000 years before the birth of Jesus Christ. So within the space of, say, 500 years, they were joined by the Canaanites. Okay. And one important thing, or let me say one surprising thing, rather, to most people, is the fact that these people, the Canaanite or the Phoenician, spoke Arabic. So we are tracing the genealogy.
So you mean that linguistically, their primordial language is
Arabic. Yes. Anybody can challenge this. Okay. Anybody who is well versed in history can challenge this. Okay. They spoke Arabic. Okay. If the fact that the Phoenicians had spoken Arabic isn't clear to many, no one will controvert over the fact that the Canaanites spoke Arabic.
Why?
That was their language. That was their language. Okay. That was their language. Okay. Arabic was their language. Don't forget that let me go back a bit. Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam had 4 children. We have Canaan, we have Sam, we have Ham, we have Japheth. Sam particularly, through whom scholars, whether contemporary or ancient, came about the idea of what? Of Semites. Some basically spoke Arabic.
So Arabic has been that long.
It is an old language. Some people erroneously believe that whenever we have a discourse around Arabic language, we are trying to showcase our connection with the Quran or with the Prophet or with the place of birth of the Prophet.
Now, Ustadh, please, I would like you to kindly tell us Sham. How many countries? Sham happen to be a very ancient language.
Of course.
So for that geographical location, which is not narrowed down to only Palestine,
Okay.
how many countries sprang up from Sham?
Thank you, Maya. That is a very good question. Most people believe that whenever we make a mention of Sham, we only particularize on Palestine. Sham is the mother language,
Okay.
under which we have names like Al-Urdun, Jordan.
Jordan.
We have Lebanon,
Okay.
whose capital is Beirut.
Beirut.
We have Syria.
Okay.
We have Damascus, that is Damascus, where we find Jerusalem.
Okay.
So if you had all these names together, contemporarily we have what we know in history to be Sham. I mean, we have Al-Urdun, Jordan, we have Syria, we have Lebanon, we have Damascus, where we have Jerusalem, and we have Palestine, that is Palestine.
Now, to the burning issue, please, Ustadh, can you please, within space of some minutes, were Israelites the proper owner of the land? Were they the Aboriginals? If they were not, when did they come there? How did they come by that land? For them to have laid claim to own that thing?
This is I would say a technical question, Maya, but won't, because we don't want to step on a number of toes, refrain from saying the truth.
Okay.
Let me say this before any other analysis.
Okay.
The contemporary Israelis that you and I know, are not the original landowners of the present-day Palestine.
How do you mean, sir?
Initially I began to trace the genealogy of the people of Palestine.
Okay.
I said 3,000 years before the birth of Jesus Christ, we had the Phoenicians, followed by the Canaanites. There was another group of people named the Crete, who migrated from the northern part of the then Greece, also down to Palestine. But the emergence of Palestine, that historical Palestine, came up with an intermingling of races between the Phoenicians and the Canaanites. See, the Phoenicians and the Canaanites, the Phoenicians, I beg your pardon, and the Canaanites were the two major people through whom the modern day Palestine emerged.
Okay.
They were referred to as the Palestinians.
It's like it's combination of two different ethnic groups.
The Phoenicians,
so
the Canaanites.
It gives us like a kind of hybrid.
Okay. There was a kind of hybrid between the Phoenicians and the Canaanites.
Okay.
So that hybrid engendered what? The present-day Palestine and Palestinians.
Okay.
Now, I'm coming down to how Prophet Abraham, because the Jews would identify with Abraham, whether truly or maliciously. They will say they are from Abraham. After almost 1,000 years, 1,000 years, to some other historians, they say it was over 1,000 years.
Okay.
After the Phoenicians and the Canaanites had built what we now know to be Palestine, Abraham came from Ur, Chaldean, Al-Kaldaniyun from Mesopotamia. He migrated down to Palestine. He came through Jordan, but he didn't stay for a long time in Jordan until he and the retinue of those who followed him came down to Palestine. They call it Hebron. And when was that? J.W. Smith, another Christian historian,
J.W. Smith.
Yes, in his book titled Man and God, God and Man in Israel, says what I'm tracing. So after over 1,000 years, that the people of Palestine through the Phoenicians and the Canaanites had become known to be what? Palestinians. Abraham came to their midst.
Okay.
And you know that nobody will lay a claim to being a Jewish except through what? Through the patriarchal connection of what? Of Abraham. So when were the 12 tribes through Isaac came into being? What are we claiming? For more than 1,000 years, Arabic language was the lingua franca of the people of Palestine, the people of Sham in general.
Okay.
I don't say they were them Muslims, in their entirety, but they spoke Arabic as a language.
However, there are religious differences.
They spoke Arabic, and that is what predisposes them to laying a claim to the land in Palestine as what as Arab Palestinians.
Now, back to the question. Israel.
Okay.
Or let me say Israelites.
Okay.
The Jew.
Okay.
So they lay claim to being the proper owner.
Okay.
According to biblical verse, to biblical historical revelation, I believe.
Okay.
So they said that God had promised them that land. When exactly did Israel come to be? When?
Thank you very much. I said earlier, and you see, we are going to record a success in having this discourse. So far, we do not begin from the religious connections. Okay. We are tracing history. And that is why none of us has quoted, prophet says this, prophet says that, or the Quran says this, or Quran says that. Okay. If anyone will lay a claim to the land in Palestine, are you following? Okay. That person must first of all admit that that land belongs to an Arab-speaking people. Okay. That is one. If anyone would also say that there are a number of verses in the Bible that qualify the contemporary Israelis to lay a claim to that land, would equally revert to several other verses from the same Bible. Okay. I could remember Genesis chapter 24, verses 1 to 4, are you following? Exactly. Explains to us how Abraham himself, alayhi salam, related with the people of Palestine. Okay. You remember, and every other people listening to us, every other person rather listening to us will remember that when it was time for Abraham to pick a wife for Isaac, he told the oldest housemaid he had to go back to the land where Abraham was born. He said, I couldn't pick a wife for my son Isaac from the Canaanite with whom I dwell. Meaning that Abraham was a stranger. We are in Canaan, in Palestine. There's another verse of the Bible, I think Genesis chapter 24. No, Genesis chapter 23. Genesis chapter 23, verse 4. When Sarah died, Abraham was pleading to the people of Palestine with whom he was dwelling to sell a portion of land to him, yes, where he would bury his wife. Was he an original owner of the land? So wouldn't because we lay a claim to Abraham pervert the cause of justice? Okay. The people who own Palestine are Arabs. Okay. So that is just the summary.
Israel, when exactly did they come to the land? That is
a question that is as simple as ABC. Everybody knows that contemporary Israelis came to the fore by the draconian, or let me say through the draconian treaty entered into by Britain in 1916. That is the Balfour Treaty. It was the Balfour Treaty that set the motion. It was the Balfour Treaty that set the motion of emergence and existence, I would say new existence, to the contemporary Israelis, and that was in 1916. Okay. If Israel first appeared, the state of Israel first appeared on the world map in 1947. So what are we saying?
So you mean that the first time
Israel will appear on the world map was in 1947? Are you now saying that, or do people insinuate that prior before 1947, there were not people called Palestinians whose language majorly is Arabic? Okay. So we shouldn't because something is serving our interest, pervert the cause of justice.
Okay. Well, my Ustadh, Jazakumullah khairan, for that wonderful presentation.
Welcome.
So it is quite historical, and whatever the historical will take a time to be unraveled.
That is true.
To be unraveled.
Sure.
So it seems somehow abstract now, as we've started.
It may sound or appear abstract, but as we advance, people will understand us better.
Does. So now, but you laid a claim to the fact that Israel, the Balfour Treaty, came into being in 1916.
That is true.
And Israel first appeared on the world map in 1940.
1947. Every sincere historian knows that. Every sincere historian, whether a Muslim or a non-Muslim, knows that.
Now, that 1947 happened to be post Second World War.
Of course, it was.
Now,
it was.
That brings about another question, Ustadh.
Okay.
How did Israel? Did they buy the land, or were they offered on the platter of gold? Because before you can say, okay, well, this land belongs to me, you must have had a particular thing to show for or to back up your being the owner of the land.
Okay.
It's quite impossible for me to just lay claim to a fallow land, a loose land. Okay, this is my land. People will ask me, what is my evidence? So the Palestinians, did they sell the portion of land, the initial land, the initial portion of land, which was initially given to Israel or bought? I don't know which one, because you are going to answer the question now.
Okay.
Did they buy it, or it was given to them? And why did the then world power, why did they choose that place?
That is a wonderful question, Maya, but we shouldn't shy away from the fact that no portion of the land in Palestine, I wouldn't say Israel anyway, no portion of the land in Palestine and every other region around that place was given for free to any Israeli. There were Israelis, or people who lay claim to being followers of Moses, especially, who believe that they are the original landowners of that place. At a point in time, I think before, especially before the Muslims went back to cleanse the land, Palestine. Before the Muslims went back to cleanse the land, the Palestinian land, from all forms of, shirk, idolatry that had become the ways of life for the people there, the Jews had left Palestine. You remember in history that for almost 600 years, the Byzantine Empire, Roman Empire, ruled over Palestine, Sham to be precise. In the period, the Jews were experiencing one problem and another. So as a result of that, they had to leave the place. They left the place. It wasn't that the Muslims, sent them packing. That is one wrong notion that some people are carrying around. No Muslim leader in history. No Muslim leader in history sent this packing at all. It is a lie. When did the Ottoman Empire emerge, and when did it fall? These things are not new to people who are conversant with history. So no portion of land was given, no portion of land was handed down to any Israeli as a leftover of the heritage of Abraham.
Did they then buy it?
That's a very good question. Initially, the successive Islamic rulers around that region hesitated to sell any portion of the land.
Can you mention a name?
Especially King Faisal. King Faisal of the blessed memory. Do you know why he refused?
Why?
He foresaw what no other person saw in his time. He foresaw a problem of this nature. He foresaw that something of this magnitude will occur, and he knew that it wasn't un-Islamic to sell a portion of land to any stranger. Basically, when Abraham came to Palestine, he bought land. Are you following? When other people, other than Abraham and those who followed him, came to Palestine, they bought land. But the question of the Jews to the successive Muslim leaders was an important one.
Okay.
If you live in their midst, they will never pay allegiance or any allegiance to the fact that something common binds you together. Okay. They only show allegiance to their identity to their ethnicity. They only show allegiance to their religious sensibility. Okay. Nothing interests them in whatever affects your religious sensibility. Okay. That is whom they've been in history. Okay. And that is why several successive leaders, whether Muslims or non-Muslims, have often avoided them. Okay, the land in question. It was just an infinitesimal number among the not Israelis, as we have them, the Jews, who came back to Sham as residents. If you want to be a resident somewhere and you are permitted to buy a portion of land, wouldn't you buy?
Exactly.
You buy. So they bought portions of land as residents, and nobody thought that what is happening would happen. They sold them portions of land, but within a year, it is on record. We shall soon get there. Okay. Within a year, could you believe that close to 1,000, just like 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 people, initially came to buy land. Okay. But within a year, close to 1,000 Israelis had moved into Gaza, into Jaffa, into Palestine. Because they have that natural feelings of entitlement to that land. And that was why it was a problem. It was a problem that Europe in entirety avoided by thinking of a permanent abode for the Israelis right inside Palestine or right inside Sham.
Now, because of the time constraints, I would like to quickly ask you a question which I expect to be answered within space of 30 seconds.
Okay.
Geographically, a portion of land that will be occupied by 100 people wouldn't be suffice enough to have occupied a 1,000. Now, how did they expand their dominion for them to have had that number to have accommodated 1,000 within a year? What was the Palestinians, the authority, the Palestinian authority, what were they looking at? What did they do to impede this expansion? Because it became military occupation.
An answer to that question is going to be a two-way thing.
Okay.
One is the fact that, it is not about feeling connected with Islam.
Okay.
The Arab people are a resilient people. They welcome strangers.
Exactly.
That is
it's
one
part of their culture.
The other thing is that how colonial interest skyrockets now.
Okay.
To several Arab people who are Palestinian, they thought it was a simple thing.
Now,
that is just the answer. How colonial interest skyrockets.
You may mention colonial interest.
Of course.
It triggers up a particular thing in me. But because of the time constraint, we won't be able to continue today. Inshallah, Ustadh, we would like to have you again on this program to further explain, demystify, and shed light to the gray areas. Because it is quite baffling. It's quite surprising. It amazes people. Me, to be precise, it amazes me how some non-Muslims, I don't want to say all, have chosen to remain silent over this burning issue. Bismillah ta'ala, this shall be the point of call in our next edition. So, summarily, my Ustadh, Jazakallah khairan, is Ustadh from University of Ibadan. He has his first degree in political science. Likewise, the same degree from the same university of Ibadan, the premier and the first. So, he is a lecturer at Department of Political Science. So,
I think you should don't make
I will need to include it because the issue of this magnitude, before it can be discussed.
Maya, please, for the sake of posterity and for the sake of not wanting to, like you said just before now, that some people, some non-Muslims think that whatever happens to the Palestinians should be the palaver of the Muslims, and because they think their scripture has never spoken or made any mention of whom the Arab should be. So because of that, I wouldn't feel comfortable if you go headlong mentioning where I freelance for the sake of posterity.
Okay, no problem. He is an Ustadh, a graduate of Modern Arabic and Nigeria also. So he's a voracious reader. He has many writings to his credit and many lectures also. So which are available on this channel. So we say Jazakumullah khairan to Ustadh. So and inshallah Rahman, we will be glad to have you again on this channel discussing the same topic. So may Allah continue to strengthen you, watch over you and your household and everything that is dear to you. Amen. So my dear listeners, thank you very much for staying tuned. We will be glad to have you again on this same channel discussing, let's say, same issue. So and for posterity purpose, we'll be discussing issues that are pertaining, that are affecting first Muslims, as the name of the program implies, Muslim state of affairs. So we say Jazakumullah khairan for having listened. So inshallah, so we'll meet again. We say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.